Shalom. Kol Haloyim, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rachakudash, Shanyakabad, Gadwala Requab, Zequanium Nawa, Wa Shalayakim Nawa. That's the belongers to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone and Shalom, Wabarakim, Labakarium, Shalayasharala. And that's peace and blessings to the elect of Israel. So really quickly, I just wanted to bring out this pretty short article going into trucker protests over, you see that word, mandates. And so this is important because it's going to be one of the many things, I'll use that word things for lack of a better word, one of the many things that lead up to Jacob's trouble, which the scriptures say will be a time like never was, nor shall be. So I wanted to bring this out. We're going to read this article. It's very short, and then we'll grab some supporting precepts. And I pray that this is edifying to the elect. First paragraph says, a protest at a major border crossing by Canadian truckers, critical of V mandates, entered its fourth day on Thursday, shutting down traffic on one international gateway and backing it up at another. So shutting down the traffic is what it's doing. It says the protest has heightened concerns about commerce and what comes next. It also has added pressure and wait times at another international bridge, and this is how the supply chain gets messed up. Excuse me. You can find videos on YouTube about how the supply chain is, they have it so what's the word I'm thinking of? It's so not critical, but it's so man, I can't think of the word, but basically the moment that parts get loaded onto a truck, from when that trucker leaves and is on the road up until that person, the trucker, pulls up to the place that they're dropping it off, up into the parts getting unloaded and inside the place where it's getting loaded, all of that is down to the actual second. Like, it's so critical. They have it down to a T. That's not the phrase I was thinking of, but that works as well. But they have it down to a science. And that gets messed up, obviously, if 4 days goes by and truckers are just protesting. And I'm sure some are also quitting. So it's messing up that the supply chain. So it says the protest has heightened concerns about commerce and what comes next. It also has added pressure and wait times at another international bridge, the Blue Water Bridge in Port Huron, Michigan, where traffic is backing up. The bridge carries 25% of all trade between the U.S. and Canada, and Canadian authorities express increasing worry about the economic effects. Truckers calling themselves the Freedom Convoy are opposing a Canadian, and you see those two words, boom, I'll say it, mandate requiring drivers entering the country to be fully V, you see that, or face testing and quarantine requirements. So this is the root of the problem and why these truckers are striking. They're tired of these mandates surrounding the VA, so on and so forth. So it's causing a huge issue. This one little plague, and this is just the beginning. It says there are now growing concerns that not only is the protesters' fight spilling over the border to affect U.S. businesses and interrupt supply chains, there goes that word, but U.S. truckers may also be organizing similar protests in Washington and elsewhere. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security said in a bulletin to local and state law enforcement agencies that it has received reports that truckers are planning to potentially block roads in major metropolitan cities in a protest against V mandates and other issues. So it's not just this pandemic. It's other things. It's probably work hours, driving during different weather conditions, road conditions, to probably pay their wage. Who knows? But I'm sure it's not just people protesting, but you probably have a lot of truckers also quitting as well. Just like how you have a lot of people quitting these desk jobs. You have a lot of people quitting these desk jobs because they didn't want to go back into the office when they were saying, you know what, we worked efficiently from home. Why are you telling me to come back in the office? So people literally just quit. Just like how you also have people in large amounts quitting working for these retail stores because you have a lot of people randomly ganging together and they're running up in these retail stores let me think, like Nordstrom's. I believe Nordstrom's was going through it. And then other ones like jewelry stores, basically, where groups of 10, 12, 15 people with the getaway car, they were going up in there, robbing the stores, pushing over the employees, fighting the employees, and they were getting injured and then getting out of there in their getaway cars. And that was happening a lot in the West Coast earlier this year, and I guess late last year as well, like November, December time. But you have those retail workers saying, you know what, this isn't worth it. I'm not getting paid enough. I'm getting injured. My life is in jeopardy. I'm quitting. So workers in many different industries, and I'm sure also in this trucking business, they're also quitting as well. And once again, all of this is going to lead up to Jacob's trouble, and that's the point and why I'm bringing this out. So the last paragraph reads, meanwhile, both Detroit and Windsor have significant auto operations, and the standstill is a huge concern for businesses that already have been suffering from global supply chain and local staffing issues. See? Ford said late Wednesday that parts shortages forced it to shut down its engine plant in Windsor and to run an assembly plant in Oakville, Ontario on a reduced schedule. So you know what? We're seeing staffing issues. We can't pay all these people, so they cut down hours. General Motors canceled 2 shifts at a Lansing factory and has been rerouting trucks to keep a Flint plant running. So businesses are still, I'll say, being affected from this C-19, this pandemic. Schedules are being lowered. People are losing their jobs, right? So on and so forth. Supply chain issues are still in effect. So we're seeing prophecy play out right now. And this is all leading up into a time that the scriptures call Jacob's trouble. We're going to start reading in the book of Jeremiah 30, verse 5. It says, for thus saith the Lord, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Ask ye now, and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Now, Jacob here is referring to all the tribes. So it's the time of Jacob's trouble, but the he right here is basically, we can say, a pronoun referring to the elect out of those 12 tribes of Israel. That's what that he is talking about. And while the world is in utter confusion, the scriptures talk about how this day of the Lord is a day of darkness and not light, a day of gloominess. So while the world is in confusion, not knowing where their next meal is coming from, because yes, there's going to be a famine as well, then the elect, and that's why we call ourselves a hopeful elect, because we're doing the Lord's will in hopes that we're protected and delivered from these evil days, we're going to be okay. The scriptures say that we're going to be merry-hearted. And just like now, how right now, every single day, we just ask the Lord for our daily bread, we're going to be echoing the same mentality during the time of Jacob's trouble. That's it. Not worrying about the next day or the next week or the next 3 days. Just right now, O Lord, Baba Kusha, Nathan Lanawa Lacham. Just give us our bread today. Baruch Shah, Lord. Wata wata. That's it. And we're going to have faith that the Lord is going to deliver on his word. He said we're going to be merry-hearted. He said his servants will eat. So we know through faith that we'll be okay. We just have to hold on. Now, what I want to do is read verse 7 in Bible comparisons. So the King James says, alas, for that day is great. We're going to pay attention to that first phrase right there. Alas, for that day, meaning the day of the Lord, is great. Look at the CSB. It says how awful that day will be. The NIV says the same thing, how awful that day will be. The NLT says, in all history, there has never been such a time of terror. I wanted to bring out that first phrase in other Bible comparisons because that word great is not associated with something, we'll use the word quote unquote positive or so-called good, something beneficial. No, that word great is referring to a very terrible and dreadful day. Once again, the book of Zephaniah says that the day of the Lord is a day of darkness and gloominess. That's the day that we're quickly headed into. And we can see right now we're in the beginning of Jacob's trouble with the supply chain issues, with truckers protesting right now, shutting off different streets. And if these truckers are protesting, that means they're not working. That means that food isn't being delivered to different grocery stores. That will create a famine. So we're coming into this time of that's going to be awful, as the scriptures say. Now, jumping over to the book of 2 Ezra 15, it says, woe to the world and them that dwell therein. This is an end time prophecy. For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Meaning, because of the great tribulation happening upon the earth, there's going to be anarchy, meaning no rule. And people are going to say, you know what? The world is in utter chaos. There's a lack of food. I have a wife. I have children to feed. I have to do what I have to do. And people are going to go in survival mode. And they're not going to regard or pay attention to their kings or princes, which today would be your Congress, your government, your Senate, the military. You can even say all the way down to your local policeman. And there's going to be, like the phrase we always say, all hell. All hell is going to break loose here in Babylon the Great very soon. Verse 17 says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods, because of the lack of bread. So now we're coming into the end-all be-all. What's going on here? Why is this happening? Because of the lack of bread, famine, and for great tribulation. What did it say in the book of Jeremiah 30, verse 7? Alas, for that day is great. Now Ezra says, 2 Ezra 15, at the end of verse 19, it says, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. So that great day is basically a day of great tribulation. That's what that word is talking about. That awful day, great tribulation. And so we're quickly headed into this time right now of Jacob's trouble. And things are only going to get worse as we continue to get there. And so I'm probably going to end off right here in the book of 2 Ezra 16. It says, behold, the plagues draw nigh and are not slack. As when a woman with child in the 9th month bringeth forth her son, with 2 or 3 hours of her birth great pains compass her womb, which pains, when the child cometh forth, they slack not a moment. Even so So now this is an analogy. Even so, shall not the plagues be slack to come upon the earth, and the world shall mourn, and sorrow shall come upon it on every side. Now, I read another article that said that certain states, or maybe it said cities, not sure, but same thing, no difference, are loosening their mask mandates. But it's not happening big enough and at a rate that's rapid enough. And we can obviously tell because that's why these truckers are out there striking and protesting. But I mention that because no matter what, things are not going to get quote unquote better. And I use the word better referring to how the world, 2/3 of our people and the rest of the world use that word. They're hoping that we're just in a slight recession. They're hoping that grocery stores get piled back up again, that prices go back to normal, so on and so forth, that America continues its current reign. That's what they want, America to continue and their life to continue here right now as it is. But that's not how things are going to go. Things are only going to get better for the elect. Now, us, the hopeful elect, what we're looking forward to is Jacob's trouble. We're looking forward to anarchy. We're looking forward to famine because we know that these things must come to pass in order for the kingdom of heaven to be established here on earth. So we're not running away from prophecy, right? We're fully embracing it and receiving it. That's why the scriptures say watch as well as pray. So those are the quick precepts that I wanted to bring out concerning this article. This is definitely the time that we're quickly approaching. And this is just the beginning of sorrows, as the scriptures say. So I pray that this was edifying to the elect. Call Aloyim, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem L'chak double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the elect. Shalom.